These are the books of Ellen G. White, The Acts of the Apostles. The Acts of the Apostles, the amazing story of the early Christian believers is told in Volume 4. The Acts of the Apostles. After Jesus was victorious over Satan and returned to heaven, the enemy turned his attention to Jesus, church on earth. Here are thrilling stories of fairs, persecutions, and unswerving. The Adventist Home. The Adventist Home. This compilation contains practical counsel for Christian families, including guidance on where to locate the home and how to make it pleasant, and counsel on how to get along with other family members. An appeal to mothers. This book was the first Ellen G. White writing in the field of health after the vision of June 6, 1863. It depicts the perils of secret vice. It was reprinted by James White in 1870 in the Book of Solemn Appeal, related to solitary vice and the abuses and excesses of the marriage relation. An appeal to the youth. To the youth. An appeal to the youth is a collection of letters written by Ellen G. White to her children prior to the death of her eldest son, Henry, at the age of 16. These letters are an excerpt from the complete publication, which originally included Uriah Smith addressed at Henry White's funeral. A call to medical evangelism. In these last days of Earth's history, those who meet the medical needs of others will have the door open to meet spiritual needs as well. Christ himself went about doing good, healing all who were oppressed by the devil. A call to stand apart. The original source material from modern English book, A Call to Stand Apart. Child guidance. Child guidance covers the essentials of parenting, with chapters on specific building blocks of character, such as purity, cheerfulness, self-control, reverence, respect, honesty, cleanliness, and courtesy. It includes guidance on how to teach self-denial, how to mold the will. Christ in his sanctuary. The sanctuary in heaven is the very center of Christ's work in behalf of men. It concerns every soul living upon earth. It opens to view the plan of redemption, bringing us down to the very close of time and revealing the triumphant issue of the contest between Christian education. The articles included in this book are presented without abridgment and are arranged chronologically. Most of the articles do not appear in other published volumes. Christian Experience and Teachings of Ellen G. White. This book is personal narrative of Ellen G. White's early life, highlighting some of her more important visions. Christian Leadership. This compilation of statements regarding organization and co-working within the church was originally produced as a handbook for gospel workers. The council content gives insight and guidance for the work of both minister and laymen. Practical topics touch on issues. Christian service. God might have chosen and fallen angels as his representatives on earth. Instead, he chose us, every true disciple, is born into a kingdom of God as a missionary. He who drinks of the living water becomes a fountain of life, the desire of Ages 195. Christian Temperance and Bible Hygienes. One of the earliest compilations of Ellen G. White's writings, this book was put together under the peer supervision and careful examination. Previously published and unpublished takes on the topic of health form the foundation of Christian temperance and Bible hygiene. Christ's object lessons. In this devotional classic, Ellen G. White explores the depth of the best love teaching of Jesus, offering a deeply spiritual understanding of the parables of Christ as they apply to the life today, writing not as a dry historical scholar or technical. Christ our Savior, children's story on the life of Jesus. The Colforture Evangelist. This compilation of statements regarding the canvassing work highlights the importance of the publishing ministry, the need for the literature to be carried to the world, and the qualifications needed in Colforture evangelism. The content of this publication was reprinted in the book Colporteur Ministry. Essentially, a reference of the Colforteur Evangelist, this compilation of statements regarding the canvassing work highlights the importance of the publishing ministry, the need for the literature to be carried to the world, and the qualification need in Colforteur evangelism. Confrontation. Jesus, the Creator, was once put to the test in a lonely desert by Satan, his most cunning creature. The fate of the world hung in the balance. Emaciated by 40 days of fasting, he faced the most enticing sophistries of the great deceiver and met its seductive argument with. Counsels for the Church. Counsels for the Church is a comprehensive selection of inspired materials from Ellen G. White, the first appeared in books and periodicals during her lifetime, grouped into the 66 chapters. This counsel and instruction covers wide range of topics because of space limitation. Counsels on diet and foods. Decades before many psychologists were concerned with the close relationship between diet and health, Ellen G. White in her writings clearly pointed out the connection between the food we eat and our physical and spiritual welfare. In her discourses and writings from 1863 onward, counsels on health. Throughout her ministry, Ellen White devoted much effort and truth to alleviating the sorrows of the sick and suffering and to pointing them to the great physician who is able to heal to the utmost, both physically and spiritually. Counsels on Sabbath school work. An hour, that's all the time a Sabbath school leader has to make a lasting impression on minds exposed to many hours of secular indoctrination by the media each week. To help make the most of the hour is the purpose of this book. Counsel on Stewardship. Stewardship is properly managing the resources that God has committed to our care. This volume gathers together all of Ellen White's published statements on the subject, topics discussed include tithing and deafness, charity, making, and will. Counsels to parents, teachers, and students. In this book, counsels is given on conducting a school with special attention to subject matter, discipline, and objectives to be emphasized. Counsels to writers and editors. Counsels to writers and editors give inspired counsel on the principles of Christian book and periodically editing as well as other factors in the production of gospel literature. Country living. The advantages of country living have been repeatedly stressed through the spirit of prophecy council. Through the years, thousands of Seventh-day Adventists have been guided in the choice of home environments and in their relationships to organizations of the worldwide. Darkness before dawn. As the crises in the world become greater and more frequent, people are left with questions. Why do sin and suffering exist? What's still to come? How can we face the trials and catastrophes? And how can we be truly victorious in this life? Daughters of God, Lord, how shall I be served and glorify thy name in the earth? How shall I conduct my life to make thy name a praise in the earth and lead others to love, serve, and honor thee? Let me only and honor thee where I am now. Daughters of God, Lord, how shall I best serve and glorify thy name in the earth? How shall I conduct my life to make thy name a praise in the earth, and lead others to love, serve, and honor thee? Let me only desire and choose thy will. Let the words and example of my Redeemer be the light. The Desire of Ages. The Desire of Ages, Volume 3, The Conflict of the Ages, is Ellen White's classic on the life of Jesus, the one who stands at the center of all human history. No one else has had such profound influence on planet Earth as Jesus Christ. In this book, the author does not set forth early writings. This volume is a comprehensive selection of Ellen G. White's published writings from the 1850s, along with a prologue explaining the historical background of the text. The autobiographical section of the book describes the author's conversion experience, the Millerite movement. Education. The classic work on education sets forth the unique and challenging idea that the work of education and the work of redemption are one. The ultimate no, the ultimate goal of learning should be to understand more about our Creator Redeemer and reflect that understanding in our from eternity past. Focusing on the time from creation until the last days of King David. This condensed version of patriarchs and prophets delves into the origins of the great controversy between God and Satan, chronicles the battle as it transferred to earth, and illustrates how God's faithful evangelism presenting God's last warning message to Adam. Word is the highest, greatest work ever given to human beings. This comprehensive handbook on evangelism shows, shows how appropriate strategies and personal preparation of both head and heart empower faith and works. Salvation is by faith alone, but faith is never alone. That is the message of these 18 readings written 1881, 1902, 1902 on the topic of salvation. The gem of the collection is an 1890 manuscript, perhaps Ellen G. White's most definitive statement on justification by faith. Uh, Fundamentals of Christian Education. Fundament compiled from various other works. This complete and abridged articles give details on sale on the topic of education, while also providing the full context of each statement, from the biblical method of schooling to home training to the work and qualifications of teachers. God's Remnant Church, a compilation of Ellen G. White's statements about Seventh-day Adventists being part of God's remnant people led by Him until the end of time. Gospel Workers, 1892. This is a revised and enlarged compilation from the writings of Ellen G. White. It has become a highly prized handbook of counsel and instruction to ministers and all other missionary workers connected with the Seventh-day Adventist movement. Gospel Workers, 1915. This is a revised and enlarged compilation from the writings of Ellen G. White. It has become a highly prized handbook of counsel and instruction to ministers and to all others missionary workers connected with the Seventh-day Adventist movement. Great Controversy. Volume 5 of the Conflict of the Ages series carries the story of the controversy between God and Satan to its ultimate and glorious conclusion, beginning with the destruction of Jerusalem and continuing through the persecutions of Christians in the Roman Empire. The Great Controversy, 1911. The Great Hope. As you go through life, you may sense that the world is gripped in a conflict between good and evil. From what you see in the news, it may look as if evil is winning. Headlines describe famine, wars, unemployment, pollution, and disease. The media can tell you what is. The Health Food Ministry. The publication was compiled to form a comprehensive collection of Ellen White's statements regarding food production and distribution as part of the evangelistic work. Emphasis is placed on the use of the health food work as a way to win souls. The included counsel give. Healthful Living, compiled from the writings of Ellen G. White by Dr. David Paulson. Healthful Living sets forth in tropically arranged excerpts in the most concise and condensed form possible the various teachings upon the subjects of health, health reform, and allied matters which are to be. Heaven. Some of Ellen White's earliest visions contained bright glimpses of heaven and the earth made new. When she came out of vision, this world seemed stark and lonely compared with the brilliant beauty of the world to come, which she had seen so vividly, and she often struggled too. From Heaven with Love. The life of Jesus, his methods of teaching and working, his great sacrifice and love for fallen humanity. These are the themes which all of heaven delight to contemplate and which bring the greatest joy to God's children in lively language, and we deeply listen for our lives today. help in daily living. A practical guide to every blessings. Are you searching for life above the ordinary? Do you want true and lasting relationships, a genuine godly character, and a practical everyday faith that fills your life and lives of those you touch with blessings from here to forever? The love and character of God has been put in question since the fall of philosopher who has spent millennia warring against the Lord and his faithful subjects. In this condensed version of the great controversy, the conflict issued in the story of the first martyrs, historical sketches of the foreign missions of the Seventh-day Adventists. The A.G. White portion of this book includes her notes of travel, tracing her journey from California to Europe and her account of the first of her three visits to many of the European countries, drawn largely from her reports. The impending conflict. This booklet is a collection of 8 crucial chapters from the book, The Great Controversy. It covers the entrance of sin into the universe, answering in a clear, convincing manner many of the questions that have puzzled the minds of men in all ages. Each author, Ellen G. White, delved last the events. A new look for an important message. In 1992, the trustees of the Ellen G. White State in cooperation with Pacific Press Publishing Association released a new compilation of Ellen White statements about the end times entitled The Last Day Events. Letters to Young Lovers. This book consists of letters and other counsel which Mrs. White gave to couples in love. It is full of thoughtful advice for all contemplating marriage. Life sketches of James White and Ellen G. White. This publication includes chapters written by Ellen G. White regarding her early life and work. The autobiographical portion chronicles the progress of the Advent movement in the 1840s and 1850s. These pages are part of a larger life sketches of James White and Ellen G. White, 1888. This publication includes chapters written by Ellen White regarding her early life and work. The autobiographical portion chronicles the progress of the Advent movement in 1840s and 1850s. Life sketches of Ellen White. Still the same book. Manual for Canvassers. The first of Mrs. White's compilation, The Colporteur work, Manual for Canvassers, touches on topics such as the importance of the publishing work, the qualification of the workers, and practical guidance in the carrying out of literature distribution. The publication's material. Medical ministry. Ellen White wrote a great deal about health. Much of her counsels in this book is directed to medical workers, but people not directly involved in health care work also will find much of interest and value. The author placed great importance and obedience to God's law as a foundation for messages to young people. Several generations of youth have been nourished by his uncompromising call to duty, purity, and service. The author, who began her ministry when only 17 years of age, invites you to examine the reading, dress, music, and social life, and discard cheap amusement that return. Volume 1. This collection of inspired writings deals with a wide spectrum of topics, including the place of true psychology in the gospel works, as well as the dangers of the popular counterfeit, the deal to deal with minds in the nicest work in which never ever engaged the author stage. The mind character and personality volume 2. The ministry of healing. Many things contribute to good health: cheerfulness, fresh air, exercise, diet, and positive relationships with other people. The name of few. Crucial also our personal relationships with the Creator who give us life and everything we need for health and happiness. Ministry to the cities. This volume is a call to action, a plea for believers to work for their Savior by bringing the gospel to the millions of people in the cities of the world. Topics include challenges of ministering in the city, strategies, methods, selecting and training workers, and lessons from a new life, revival, and beyond. What does true conversion mean? And how can I continue growing in grace and to the measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ? A new life focuses on the revival and reformation process and unswerving questions about the need. The text is drawn from various articles. Pastoral ministry. From the rich treasury of Ellen White's writings, the compilers of this book have brought together a selection of inspired counsels that apply most directly to the life and work of the local church pastor, members of the General Conference, Minister Association in conjunction. Patriarchs and Prophets. Patriarchs and Prophets is the first volume in the Conflict of the Ages series. It covers the sweeping panorama of human history from the creation of earth to the reign of Israel's King David. With usual insight, an author describes the role of our planet in the cosmic conflict. Peter's Counsel to Parents. The book of 2nd Peter contains invaluable counsel for both young and old. In this collection of Ellen White's sermons on 2nd Peter, special emphasis is placed on child education, schoolwork, and practical godliness in parenting and family life. Prayer. Prayer is the breath of the soul. It is the secret of spiritual power. The atmosphere of prayer and devotion throughout the day is an important part of spiritual life, especially in this last moment of Earth's history. This publication provides a practical collection of helpful principles for Christian leaders. Principles for Christian Leaders is a wide-ranging collection of material gathered from the inspired writings of Ellen White on many aspects of Christian leadership. The 13 segments of this book contains principles that are applicable for every line of work in which men. Prophets and Kings. Prophets and Kings, the second volume in the Conflict of the Ages series, opens with the story of Solomon's glorious reign over Israel and ends with the nation's exile and captivity. It traces the story of a favored and chosen people, vacillating between allegiance to God. The publishing ministry. In regard to the publishing work, Ellen G. White wrote, "Let everyone professing the name of the cry of Christ act a part in sending forth the main message, or the end of all things at his hand, or prepare to meet thy God." She added that gospel publications should go everywhere. The retirement years. In this volume, Ellen White offers many inspired and inspiring answers to questions raised by Golden Agers. These gems of truth have been gleaned from her letters, manuscript, books, and periodical articles, many of which were written after she was 65, the 23 years. The sanctified life. Under the general title of sanctification, there appeared in the early issues of the Review and Herald for 1881 a series of 11 helpful articles from the pen of Ellen G. White. In the same decade, the 11 articles were drawn together and published as a pamphlet, Selected Messages, Book 1. During her 70s of ministry, Ellen G. White wrote more than 5,000 articles on a wide variety of subjects. The unique collection in this book includes important statements on inspiration, her work as a messenger of the Lord, and the processes by which God communicates His. Selected Messages 2. Selected Messages 3. A sketch of the Christian's experience and views of Ellen G. White. Published by James White in 1851, this publication embodies of a brief autobiographical sketch and visions given to Ellen White, many of which appeared earlier in various periodicals. Notes of explanation. A brief appendix to that title, Experience and Views, where Ellen White clarifies several points she made in the book. It's now included as a supplement in early writings. Supplement to the Christian's experience and views of Ellen White. This publication presents an explanation of some misunderstood phrases, experience and views and certain further counsels, some of which had appeared in Review and Herald. Sketches from the life of Paul. This book is a much-loved work of 32 chapters devoted to the life and teachings of the Apostle Paul. Later, it was replaced by the Acts of Apostle Paul 1911, which also deals with the experience of the other apostles. There was harmony with the larger planning. A solemn appeal. This publication includes seven chapters of the original multi-author publication, a solemn appeal relative to solitary vice and abuses and excesses of the marriage relations compiled by James White. This portion of text by Ellen White also appeared represented. The Southern work under Legion White's historic 1891 testimonies and James Edson White began evangelistic and educational work among Southern blacks. Using the Mississippi boat to supply the Mississippi River, Ellen White produced an ongoing series of testimonies on this subject, special testimonies on education. Special testimonies on education brings together many previously unpublished letters and manuscripts written to parents, teachers, and school workers. Counsel is given on every phase of child guidance, from practical work and academics to character growth and spiritual gifts. The spiritual prophecy bestowed on God's people throughout history. Most recently rested upon Ellen White, who conveyed the given in admonition and writing. Many of her earliest testimonies and views are published in the Spiritual Gifts volumes. Spiritual Gifts, Volume 2, 3, 4, ah, so many. Spiritual Gifts, Volume 48, wow. 4B, not 48, 4B. The Spirit of Prophecy, Volume 1, was the second publication of what is known as the Conflict of the Ages series, detailing the great controversy between God and Satan from beginning to end in this first volume, second volume, third volume, and the fourth volume, from splendor to shadow. As a part of the Conflict of the Ages series, from prophets and kings stands out in its nation of both the ups and downs of God's people, from Israel's greatness under Solomon's reign to her downfall during the Babylonian captivity and the subsequent history up to the time. Step to Christ. Thousands have become acquainted with Jesus through this little book, Step to Christ, and it had helped many more, including those who have walked with Him for years, to know Him better. Story of Hope. Drawing from both biblical accounts and Ellen White G. White's unique and insightful visions, the story of hope offers a glimpse behind history, contains where we learn of God's plan and redemption for man, even before his creation. The books unfold the origin of evil while revealing both gods. The story of Jesus, an adaptation of materials preferred for the desire of Jesus, came from the pen of Ellen G. White, presenting the high points of the story of Jesus in vocabulary suitable for children, with the story of redemption. In the mid-19th century, Ellen White experienced a series of visions concerning the great controversy of the ages between Christ and Satan. These visions inspired a small work entitled Spiritual Gifts, which was later expanded into a four-volume work. Temperance. Temperance was a favorite theme of Ellen White both in her writings and in her public speaking. Through the years, she urged everyone, both young and old, to practice temperance and to promote it vigorously. Although society has changed marked since Miss White. Testimonies for the Church. The ninth volume, Seat of Counsels from the Spirit of Prophecy, contains spiritual commentary of general nature, along with many letters of intimate instruction to members of the church during Ellen White time. Volume 2, Volume 3, Volume 4, Volume 5, Volume 6, Volume 7, Volume 8, Volume 9. So many testimonies on the Sabbath School works. These selections from Ellen White's Sabbath School Workers articles are chronologically arranged and supplemented with selections from the testimonies. Counsel is given on nearly every speaks of Sabbath School's work giving guidance on addictive methods. Testimonies on sexual behavior, adultery, and divorce. This book is a compilation of Ellen White's statements relating to appropriate behavior between men and women and how to handle problems that arise, plus compassionate counsel for situations where marriage, testimonies for ministries and gospel workers. Ellen White's vital messages to the church leaders following the historic 1888 Minneapolis General Conference session were published as testimonies to ministries and gospel workers. Through many years have passed since Ellen White first wrote these testimonies. Testimonies to Southern Africa. As a part her deep interest in the African health, White corresponded with several missionaries, leaders, and believers in the continent. This collection of her letters contains counsel, both spiritual and practical, for the work of foreign land. Testimony studies on diet and foods. A comprehensive handbook to health and diet reforms as set forth in the spirit of prophecy. This volume is a compilation from many previously published source chapters of the publication are listed typically and alphabetically ordered and covered many common themes. Testimony Treasures, Volume 1. This series contains approximately one-third of the content of the testimonies, presenting the essential counsels for the word filled without the repetition of subject matter that was inevitable in the nine-volume testimonies issued over a 55-year period. 2 Volume 2, 3 Truths from the Mount of Blessing. The greatest sermon ever preached was given on once unnamed mountain, now known as the Mount of Beatitudes. The words there spoken 2,000 years ago have echoed down through the ages as guidance and encouragement for Christians on the upward path. From trials to triumph. In the power of the early rain, the first apostles took the gospel to all ends of the known onward, but they were not met without resistance. In this condensed version of the Acts of Apostles, the reader travels with the early believers as they preach the message of Christ in the air. True Revival. This volume collects Ellen White's most important writings on revival. She helps us distinguish between true and false revival and talks about how revival reveals itself in our Christian walk. The truth about angels. Although the Bible describes angels as God's messengers who carry out His will on earth, misconceptions about regarding their nature and role in human affairs. Ellen G. White often lifted the veil between the seen and the unseen world, sitting for the truth about angels. The voice in speech and song. The tongue and speech are gifts from God. Ellen White states, and many proverbs confirm the great influence of these talents, both for good and harm. Therefore, it behooves us to rightly cultivate these divine gifts. This publication emphasizes our responsibility. Welfare ministry. Spirit of prophecy instruction in the delicate work of reaching hearts and winning souls through neighborly kindness. This is a type of soul winning ministry with which many Seventh-day Adventists are but casually acquainted. A word to the little flock. This short publication is an excerpt from a slightly larger work by the same name, which was published in 1847. The original book also contained articles by James White and Joseph Bates in this selected Ellen White material, important vision and views are rated. And thank you. Wow, just only for reading 42 minutes.